There is a knowledge that was hidden, not because it was false, but because it threatened the control of those who benefit from keeping sight dull and memory short. Tonight, before you decide whether to believe anything I say, I want you to try something on your own body. A simple, careful check that will begin to show you whether something in you wants to be remembered. This is about what is sealing your third eye, the forces and patterns that fog inner sight, and a gentle, practical way to begin unsealing it. First, a very short context. In the middle of the 20th century, scholars found a library of texts near the Nile, the Nag Hammadi manuscripts. These are non-canonical, Gnostic writings and sayings that circulated in several early Christian circles and other mystical groups. They are not part of the accepted Bible in most traditions. They reflect a different vocabulary and a different set of images about origin, memory, and perception. In these texts, you will find language about a primordial source, the monad, and about a lesser creator figure who fashions the visible world. That lesser creator is often called the demiurge, and alongside him are described archons, forces or intelligences that act like gatekeepers. Scholars call these texts apocryphal or Gnostic to remind us they stand apart from canonical scripture. I say that not to discredit their insight, but to give you honest context. What follows is an invitation to explore an experiential teaching drawn from that tradition, not a replacement for your faith community or your discernment. If the language feels strange, think of it this way. Imagine a vast ocean of awareness from which all life is a wave. The monad is that ocean. The demiurge is a craftsman who shapes the shorelines, creating islands and walls. The archons are the currents and tides that nudge waves into certain patterns. The consequence, in plain terms, is that much of our perception becomes conditioned, our inner sight dulled by patterns, frequencies, and habitual doubts. Those frequencies can be subtle, like static on a radio, and they often operate through thought forms that make you distrust your own memory of origin, your inner prompting, or your capacity to see beyond surface appearances. The phrase, sealed third eye, is a useful way to describe this condition. Not a literal physical eye sealed with wax, but an experiential restriction that blocks the natural reception of inner sight. Why would knowledge about this be suppressed? Any teaching that suggests individual beings carry a fragment of the divine, that people can remember their true source without mediation, undermines systems that rely on intermediaries. If many awaken to their own inner verification, control shifts. The Gnostic writers argued that certain keepers of power preferred amnesia and replaced remembrance with dogma, ritual, or distraction. Whether you accept that whole narrative or not, you can test the claim for yourself. There are bodily signatures described in those texts that can act as verifiable markers when approached with care. I want to describe 3 such marks now. These are described in Gnostic apocryphal writings as signs of a pneumatic origin, of one who carries a spark of the primordial source. I will be precise about location and sensation so you can self-check. I will also be careful about safety. None of these checks are aggressive, none require force, and you should stop if anything feels painful or alarming. The first mark is at the base of the skull, the place where your head meets the spine. Feel the bony ridge where your skull curves into your neck. In some accounts, this region is described as a signature of origin, a place where the body remembers its link to the source. When you place gentle pressure there, you may feel a subtle warmth, a faint buzz, a sense of familiarity, as if a certain channel opens slightly. That sensation, if present, is a subjective sign, a somatic memory, not a proof to be argued about. It can be a whisper rather than a shout. The second mark is on the lateral edge of your hand, along the line between the heel of your palm and the base of your little finger, continuing toward the wrist. In modern language, that area is sometimes associated with perception or second sight. In the mapping I'm using today, it is directly correlated with what we call the third eye. When the archons or fogging frequencies are active, this root of perception may feel numb, closed, or rigid. When it is free, a lightness, tingling, or a soft pressure may appear when you trace the line. You might notice an electrical sensation, a small gate that opens inward toward awareness. The third mark sits on the center of the chest, at the upper sternum, the place above the heart where many spiritual traditions locate a voice of authority or a declarative center. Gnostic accounts sometimes describe this point as a sign of one who can declare truth aloud, the point of command. When you apply gentle pressure there, you might sense a resonance that aligns breath and speech, a little tightening that clarifies what you want to say and how you might speak it. Again, this is subjective. Some feel nothing at first. Some feel an ache of memory. Both are valid starting places. I'll now guide you through a safe, slow self-check. If at any point you feel uncomfortable, dizzy, or distressed, stop immediately and sit quietly. This is not therapy or medical instruction. It is a spiritual somatic test done with care. Begin by sitting comfortably with your spine supported. Close your eyes if that helps you tune inward. Take 3 long, even breaths. Inhale slowly through the nose. Count silently to 4. Hold for 1. Then exhale gently through the mouth to a count of 4. Allow the shoulders to drop. Now tilt your chin slightly forward and, using the pads of your fingers, place both hands at the base of your skull where the bone rounds into the neck. Do not press hard. Apply gentle, even contact with the intention of listening rather than fixing. Hold that gentle touch for about 30 seconds. As you rest there, pay attention to subtle temperature changes, tiny shifts, a feeling of soft opening or familiarity. Notice any images, memories, or small sounds that come up. If skeptical thoughts arise, the quick dismissive sentences, note them as thoughts, not commands. They are expected. After 30 seconds, slowly withdraw your hands and let your chin return to neutral. Breathe in and out, letting any sensations settle. Next, bring one hand to the lateral edge between your little finger and your wrist. With the opposite hand, use your index finger to trace a line from the heel of your palm outward toward the wrist, following the outer contour gently. This tracing should be slow and intentional, as if you are awakening a sleeping chord. Do this tracing for about 20 to 30 seconds, feeling for tingling, slight vibration, or a soft electric hum. Some people report a subtle widening behind the eyes, a sense like a curtain thinning. If you notice tension, soften your touch. If nothing is felt, stay calm. Some activations are gradual and arrive only after repetition. Now, place the tips of your fingers over the center of your chest at the upper sternum, the place just above the heart where the collarbones meet. Breathe into that spot. On each exhale, press very gently, as if you are touching a small knot and inviting it to relax. Keep that contact for 15 to 20 seconds. Notice whether your voice seems more present in your throat, whether a phrase rises easily, or whether a sense of command settles into your chest. This is not a promise that you will suddenly prophesy or speak in tongues. It is simply a check for resonance, an embodied verification. Before I say more, if this exercise resonates with you even slightly, type the word recognition in the comments. One word. It helps us know we are not alone in this process. But do that only after you complete the self-check. No need to rush. If, during any of these steps, your mind erupts with immediate doubt, a quick stream of "this is nonsense" or "I'm imagining it," take note. Those instant dismissals are not necessarily your final judgment. In the Gnostic mapping, they function as archonic interference, defensive, frequency-based responses intended to interrupt recollection. They are predictable. The appropriate response is observation. Acknowledge them, breathe, and return attention to the body. Do not argue with the thought in the moment. Arguing strengthens mental loops. Instead, cultivate curiosity. Watch the thought like a passing cloud and return to the sensation under your hands. You might ask, is this physical? Is it psychological? Both answers can be true. The Gnostic language treats the body as a map where memory leaves traces. Modern language recognizes that mind and body are entangled. Whether what you feel is energetic, neurological, or purely symbolic is less important than whether it functions as a reliable signal for you. Over time, repeated attentive checks will reveal patterns. Some will feel nothing for weeks and then notice a shift overnight. Others will experience a small clarifying sensation in their first attempt. None of these outcomes is a moral grade. Now, about what seals the third eye. In this framework, sealing happens through repeated patterns that prioritize external images, fear, and repetitive low-frequency narratives that keep attention outward and anxious. Archons operate through frequencies, habits of thought, cultural stories, compulsive worry, addictive distraction. They find purchase in sleep-deprived nervous systems, in repetitive media cycles, and in unquestioned assumptions that the outer world is the only source of meaning. These frequencies do not always appear as overtly malevolent entities. They can disguise themselves as practical common sense, sharp skepticism, or piety. The sealing is often gradual. A small overload of sensory distraction, a steady stream of fear, a culture that values external authority over inner verification. Over time, the third eye becomes covered in film, a subtle dullness that makes inner sight uncertain. Resistance to unsealing is also predictable. When you begin to prioritize inner verification, small defensive phenomena often intensify. Louder intrusive thoughts, sudden embarrassment at new experiences, even social friction when you begin to speak differently. These reactions are not necessarily signs you are doing something wrong. They are signs that something in the system notices a shift. The wise response is to remain grounded, maintain regular embodiment practices, and avoid quick converts to grand claims. Unsealing is an ongoing ordering of perception, not a single theatrical event. If you would like to explore a gentle activation to use at night, here is a simple sequence meant to align breath, attention, and tactile verification. Perform this only when you are safe, at rest, and in a private space where you can sleep afterward if needed. Never drive or operate machinery after intense inner work. This practice is meant for calm, contained environments. Lie down or recline in a comfortable position. Dim the lights. Take 3 slow breaths to settle. Place the pads of your fingers at the base of your skull, as before, and hold light contact for 30 seconds. Feel for warmth, faint buzzing, or a soft remembering. After 30 seconds, move your hand to the lateral edge of your non-dominant hand and trace along the outside toward the wrist for 30 seconds, imagining you are opening a small door on the inside. Then place your fingertips over your upper sternum and, on the exhale, press very gently and declare aloud, with calm intention, the 9-word affirmation. I unseal my sight, remember my source, speak truth. Say it once, slowly, with attention to each word. Allow the phrase to resonate in your chest and throat as you breathe out. A few notes about that phrase. It is an affirmation, a personal claim you make to yourself, not a magical incantation promising instant miracles. Speak it with intention and openness. If you feel fear, shorten the phrase and simply breathe into the chest spot. If you feel an unanticipated emotional response, stay present and be kind to yourself. If intense distress surfaces, stop and seek support. When you say the phrase, be aware of one more predictable phenomenon: immediate rational objections. The mind may produce half a dozen arguments about why the exercise is false. Notice them as reactions. For many who practice over weeks, those reactions grow quieter as inner verification strengthens. Others report that their sensory bandwidth for subtle impressions increases. They begin to get short, vivid impressions in dreams, quick gut impressions, or clearer inner images during quiet moments. Treat these as data points, not as final proof. Community matters in this work. The Gnostic writers emphasized small groups of remembering. You will likely discover that when one person loosens a seal, Others around them become more curious and receptive. That is why I asked you to type recognition if the self-check resonated. It helps create a soft field of mutual affirmation without turning practice into spectacle. If you do comment, keep your language simple and grounded. If you feel compelled to share a detailed experience, consider using private messages or a support group rather than a public thread. Inner work can be delicate and easily misinterpreted. A few ethical and practical boundaries to keep this safe and honest. Do not take these practices as prescriptions to abandon your healthcare, therapy, or medical treatment. If you have a diagnosed medical condition related to neurology or mental health, consult a professional before engaging in breathwork or repetitive inner focus. Do not use the activation to justify coercive behavior or to attempt to control others. These teachings are about personal verification and alignment, not about manipulating people or circumstances. And I will say again, the Nag Hammadi texts and the Gospel of Philip are non-canonical and Gnostic in nature. They provide a mythic and symbolic framework, not a universal theological replacement for any tradition you hold dear. If you try the nighttime activation even once and feel something, a small warmth, a clearer inner image, a new ease in speaking your truth, great. If you feel nothing at all, that is also useful information. Practice with compassion and consistency. Many who embark on this work report that their inner language changes. They stop waiting for permission to trust what they sense. They begin to test, carefully, and to speak from a quietly increasing authority. That is what the Gnostic phrase anamnesis points toward, recollection. It is not necessarily dramatic. Often it is increased steadiness, a gradual shift in how you orient to thoughts and feelings. If you are concerned about the possibility that these experiences could be purely psychological trickery, be honest with yourself and take notes. Keep a small journal of sensations, notes on your dreams, and any shifts in your daily responses. Over time, a pattern will emerge that either supports the practice or suggests a new approach. And if skepticism remains dominant, that too is a legitimate path. For some, doubt is the right posture until evidence accumulates in their own felt experience. To close, remember this. Sealing of the third eye is not a cosmic punishment. It is a condition produced by rhythms and frequencies, social, mental, and energetic, that favor outward fixation. Unsealing is a disciplined return to embodiment, to listening, and to speaking from a chest that remembers. The checks I've given are practical ways to begin that return: base of skull, lateral hand, and upper sternum. The declaration is a personal affirmation to be used with care and consent only to yourself. I unseal my sight, remember my source, speak truth. If this message landed with any resonance, consider saving this video and coming back to the nighttime activation tonight. If you felt even a faint response during the self-check, type recognition in the comments so others know we are moving together quietly, not alone. In future sessions, we will explore subtler patterns of archonic interference and exercises to widen inner bandwidth, always with safety and humility. Keep your inquiry steady. Trust your body as an ally, and treat thoughts as weather rather than law. The work of unsealing is slow, patient, and deeply hopeful. Thank you for listening and for testing for yourself. If you want more guided activations like this, subscribe and save this video for tonight's practice. Remember, this is an invitation to remember, not a demand to change your life overnight. Be patient, be kind, and keep your sight attentive.